So in this lecture, we're going to talk about human capital and economic. See, there are two sets of countries. One is the set of developed countries. And then you have developing countries, right? In developed countries, industrial revolution, it started long back. And with industrial revolution, there was the investment in physical capital, right? So industrial revolution started long back, and with that came the investment in physical capital. And they also understood this very well, that the profits which this investment in physical capital is giving, that has to be sustained on a very long basis. And that can be sustained only by having more knowledge. So they said this, that why don't we invest in knowledge? So with that knowledge, they will be able to have a better long run capacity. They will be able to have profits for a very long time. This is not what developing countries have understood. So the incentive to earn more profits it also led to investment in human capital, right? Investment in human capital. Developing countries, they didn't understand that. They said this, no, I mean, they had their overindulgence in the investment in physical capital only. So they have not invested a lot in knowledge. They have not invested a lot in human capital. And because of that reason, developing countries, they were already behind these developed countries. And because of very less investment in the human capital, in knowledge, in education, in skill, they have also lagged behind more, right? So they didn't invest much in human capital. And because they didn't invest much in human capital, they lagged behind developed countries even more. They lagged behind developed countries even more, right? And there was, when I say lag behind developed countries even more, it means that the divergence between the developed and the developing countries, it started growing a lot. So it was not that they were converging towards them. It started growing a lot because they haven't invested much in the human capital. And one you have to understand is that human capital and physical capital, they are not substitutes of each other. They're not, right? So please write, note that human capital and physical capital are not substitutes of each other. They're not. They're not substitutes of each other, right? So you can rather say that they are essentially complementing each other. So if you are going to invest more in human capital, that better equipped human capital, that better, what do you mean better equipped? Equipped with better knowledge. That kind of human capital is going to use physical capital even more productively. So that is the point, right? So they are complements of each other, right? So if you invest in human capital with better knowledge, that human capital is going to use even physical capital more productively, right? Uh, so, and then they start with this, that you can just imagine this human capital going to have some effect on the income. And then, and they said this, that can be separated into the two kinds of savings in the economy, right? So please write. Measuring the effect of human capital accumulation on income, right? And when you do that, you can actually find the two components of the total savings in the economy. So while doing that, so total savings, actually these savings are going to be converted into investment. No? So those total savings are going to be used for two kinds of things. One, these savings could be used to increase the physical capital of the economy. One thing. These savings could also be used to increase the human capital of the economy, which is going to increase the productivity of labor in the economy and hence the future income of the economy, right? So it can be used to increase, you can say, physical capital, the economy, right? And it can also be used to increase human capital in the economy, right? And this human capital, increase in the human capital in the economy is going to increase the productivity of labor, and not only productivity of labor, but also productivity of capital in the economy in future. So this is going to increase the productivity of labor and capital in the economy, right? So let us say we have this kind of a model. Now, let's say the model starts. So you have your output, which is the function of physical capital and human capital. This is alpha, this is 1 minus alpha. And some part of the savings is being spent to increase the physical capital. Other part of the savings is being spent to increase the human capital, right? So you can take up, let's say, S is that part of saving savings used for accumulation of physical capital. Of physical capital, right? So I can write capital in time period t plus 1 minus capital in time period t should be equal to this thing, SYT. What is YT is your output. You multiply it with small s, you get the savings. Those savings are being spent on investment. How much is the investment? Difference in capital. That is what the investment is, right? Q इसको भी ऐसे भी लिख सकते हो, proportion of savings. This is the proportion of savings used for accumulation of human capital. Right. Accumulation of human capital. So that is human capital in time period t plus 1 minus human capital in time period t. This is the total output multiplied with savings Q. So this savings has been converted into investment. Investment in what? Investment in human capital. How are you finding investment? This change in capital is nothing but the human capital, right? So this is the total resource which is being spent on investment in physical capital. This is the total resource which is being spent on investment in human capital, right? Okay. So economic growth, whenever it is going to happen due to the investment in physical capital as well as human capital. So the ratio, so you need to find out, so when economic growth is dependent upon both kinds of capital, whether physical or human. So you need to find out what is the growth of the physical capital and the growth of the human capital, right? So we can write like this, growth and why we are finding out growth, because your total output is what do you call, divided into the capital, physical capital and human capital. So the growth in total output is going to be divided into growth in physical capital and growth in human capital. So growth in physical capital, how do we write that? Right. So what we can do is this is KT plus 1 minus KT upon KT. This is the growth in physical capital. Here, what this is going to be SYT upon KT. What is YT? KT to the power alpha into HT to the power 1 minus alpha upon KT to the power system of KT to the KT, right? So this is going to become what? Your HT upon KT to the power 1 minus alpha, right? And we can write this ratio as R. This ratio is R, right? This guy we can write as R. This HT upon KT. And then you have the growth in human capital. Growth in human capital. Right. So how do you write this? HT plus 1 minus HT whole upon HT QYT upon HT. So QYT की जगह we can write KT to the power alpha HT to the power 1 minus alpha upon HT. Right. And once you solve this, you'll be getting KT upon KT upon HT. KT upon HT as alpha. Right. So, beta H upon K we have taken as R. So K upon H is nothing but, I mean, that is 1 upon R, or 1 upon R could be written as R to the power minus alpha. We can write like this. You with me? So in the long period of time, when there will be the long run, the growth in the human capital and the growth in the physical capital is going to be same. Please write, since in the long growth, in the long period, growth in physical capital and growth in human capital is going to be same. So that would mean SR to the power 1 minus alpha is equal to QR to the power minus alpha. So once you solve this, you will be getting R as Q by S, right? So R as Q by S, right? So this R, it could be used as the long-term growth rate, right? And in the long run, the growth in physical capital, human capital, and the output, that is going to be all same. So we can use this R even to talk about the growth in output. How? Please write. This R can be used as long-term growth rate and since in the long run, the growth in a human growth in human capital, physical capital, and income are the same. So growth in income is also same. So that you can write as what? Income or output, whatever you want to say. YT plus 1 minus YT whole upon YT. That is also equal to the growth of physical capital, which is SR to the power 1 minus alpha, or growth in human capital is QR to the power minus alpha, right? So we can write that as what? S to the power alpha, S to the power alpha, and Q to the power 1 minus alpha, right? So this is the way we are going to write this. So growth in the output is going to be like this. You know what? I mean, you can also write it this way. You have Y is equal to what? Your K to the power alpha into H to the power 1 minus alpha. You write it like this. Okay. And then you say, you take up log of both the sides. Alpha log of H. And then you take the time log derivatives. Right. And then you take the time log derivatives. So you'll be getting this guy. Y dot by Y equals to alpha. K dot by K plus 1 minus alpha. H dot by H. You write it like this. What is the growth in the physical capital? This guy. Right. What is the growth in human capital? To the power minus alpha. We write it like this. We have just seen that R is equal to Q by S. To R is equal to Q by S, right? Abhi humne we have derived that. So we can write it like this. Okay. Can I take Q by S to the power minus alpha, 1 minus alpha common? Alpha S plus 1 minus alpha Q. And this is Q by S to the power minus alpha upon Q by S to the power 1 minus alpha. So it is minus alpha minus 1 plus alpha. So it is Q by S to the power minus 1. S to the power 1 minus alpha. Alpha S plus 1 minus alpha Q into S by Q, right? And what will you get? Q by S to the power 1 minus alpha. This is alpha S plus S minus alpha S. So it is just S here. And you will write what? Q to the power 1 minus alpha into S to the power 1 minus 1 plus alpha. So it is S to the power alpha. So that is what it is. The growth rate of Y is coming out to be this only, right? So the long-term growth rate, this is what you have now. This guy. This is what it is. So you can say that the long-term growth rate of an economy or of the output of an economy depends upon the rate of the physical capital formation as well as human capital formation. And why we are saying this as the rate? Because these are the proportion of the savings which are going into the human capital and the physical capital, right? So please write long-term, long run. Growth of an economy depends upon the rate of physical capital formation and human capital formation, right? Uh, and if you look at it carefully, there's one very interesting point that because physical capital is subject to diminishing returns, human capital is not. So the human capital is going to compensate for the fall in the growth in the output, which is going to come due to the diminishing returns of the physical capital, right? So what do you have? Note that. I can just write somewhere. Note that. Note that. It is the human capital which compensates compensates the fall in growth of output due to diminishing returns of physical capital. Right? Due to diminishing returns of physical capital. And human capital is going to ensure the increasing returns to scale, right? So this is some importance of human capital in the economic growth, right? You might have to read, you definitely have to read reading. There'll be more points involved. So I hope this was useful to you as some introduction for human capital and economic growth. Please read the chapter and include more important points from the chapter also, right? Chaliye, thank you, beta.